Hi all, this is Maria Clark at Sweet Willow Designs and welcome to my studio. Hey, I love this little project. This is a little notebook and I've been wanting to do a notebook for a while. I thought I would go ahead and do one. Now this design that's on this notebook is a square design and it's sort of adapted from a larger pattern that I released today, which is in my Etsy shop. And I'll have a little video on that because I'm really excited about this one. That ebook comes along not only with a step-by-step illustrations, but also with an extended video. And so I hope you all will enjoy that. I've had a lot of requests for a square pattern, so let's go ahead and get started with this one. So for the notebook, I'm using this little Exceed notebook that I got at Walmart. I think it was like, I don't know, $3.50 or $4. But it's nice because it has a dot grid inside. You can get them with different grids. But this one is a dot grid, and so that's really nice for being able to make little mandala designs. So I really thought that was really fun. And they come in lots of different colors, which I also like. So we're going to transform this little notebook into this really pretty little notebook that we can carry with us and doodle on the go. Hopefully we'll be able to get back out and get a coffee somewhere and spend some time doodling. For the paint, I'm going to be using DecoArt Americana in Laguna, Cad Yellow, Brilliant Purple, Vivid Violet, and Sour Apple. I'll use my regular tools, the Crystalite crochet hooks on my nail daughters. And I'm going to use this white wash away fabric pencil that I found at the fabric store. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't like it. And I would not recommend it, but it's what I used. And the regular pencils that I use, the Soline ceramic pencil and even the General's chalk pencil, were a little bit, they left indents on the notebook, you know, the cover of the notebook. And so I decided to try this other pencil and I hated it because it's really, really hard to get off. It says wash away, but it didn't wash away. So I struggled with that. I think in the next notebook I do, I'm going to go ahead and use the ceramic Soline because it gives me really fine lines and see how that works, and maybe the indents will relax over time. I'm also using my square stencil. This is the 5.75 stencil. I have these in my shop and they come in either the 5.75, a set of the circle and the square, and also in the 12-inch if you like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and get my marks on and we'll get this little notebook all set up. The thing I did keep in mind as I was putting my grid marks on is where that little band ends. So I try not to go too far up under that band. Okay, now I'm ready to go. I did tape off the back and the sides just to not get paint on it. If you're a little tidier than me, you might not have to do that, but I have to do it. I'm a little mess. I'm a messy painter, and so I needed to try that. So I'm going to start off with the Laguna and my K 10.5, 6.5 millimeter. Now this is an adaptation from the pattern that I showed you so I've just adapted it so it's not exactly the same as the pattern that you would purchase in my shop, but it fit the notebook a little bit better. So I changed out the size of the tools a little bit. Now I'm using my G6 4 millimeter and I'm placing the dots around. The other thing I want you to notice is because I'm putting this on the notebook, it's only part of the design. That's the fun thing about having patterns, is that you can adapt them and use them on a variety of surfaces. You know, I like to paint on all kinds of things. I have some bottles coming up and things like that. So it's really fun to be able to paint on different surfaces. And so now I'm using the Brilliant Purple and the K 10.5, 6.5 millimeter, and I've placed one of those larger dots to form the square, so at the corners on each side. And now I'm using a medium-sized nail daughter and I'll walk dots around. You can see that part of the reason I taped that off is because I am going to go off the edge with some of the paint, so I didn't want to get it messy, so I just taped it off. You could even extend this over the edge if you like to. So we'll finish up this part of the design. Now I'm using my G6 4mm and the Laguna, and just placing those dots in between each one of those petals. Now I'm back to my K 10.5, 6.5mm and the Vivid Violet, and get those dots placed. I'm using my G6 4mm and placing some dots of the Brilliant Purple. I just love seeing the square emerge like this. It's so much fun. Now I'm using my L11 8mm and the Cadmium Yellow, and I will place a dot on each of the sides of the square. Now using again the L11 8mm and the Laguna, I'm placing a dot on the corners. Okay, now I'm going to use my G6 4mm and I'm going to place 3 dots of the same size around the top of that cad yellow dot, and then I will use a large nail dotter and walk the dots around. But I kind of like that I've got the 3 dots all of the same size. It gives a little different look. Okay, now I'm going in with a large nail dotter and the Sour Apple, and I've made that center dot there just a little bit bigger by dropping some extra paint, and then I'll walk the dots around. This will be 3 rows of dots around this one to extend that design out. And again, a little bit more paint, a little bit more pressure on that center dot to make it a little bit larger. The other thing I'll notice, I'd like you to notice about this, that on the second row, I didn't start walking the dots until I'd had 2 dots on each side of the center, a little bit larger, to help me carry around. And on the third row, you'll see that I've got 4 before I start to walk the dots, and that's just to help me be able to carry the design around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm dipping my paint in each time to get the same size dots, and then I'll walk it around. And I'll do that on each corner. Now I'm adding a little bit, sometimes I run out of paint towards the end, so I just add a little bit more paint, use a very small tool to add additional paint to just kind of make sure those dots are really standing out. Okay. Just improve those a little bit. Okay, now I need to put that line back in there because I lost it as I was using my stencils. So I'm going to put the lines around the square. I'm using my G6 4mm, and a little tip is to start at the corners. Oop, I don't like that one so much. Little damp Q-tip. Start at the corner. Cut it in half, cut it in half again. Half again. And this is just helping me get my spacing a little bit more consistent. And then I'll fill it in. And you could put more dots if you wanted to get a little less space in between. These are widely spaced because I'm going to go back in and add some additional element there. All right, do it on the sides. Okay, now I'm going in with the large nail dotter and the Sour Apple, and I'm just going to add a little bit more to that frame and just dot in between each one of those larger dots. And I'll do that across the top there. I love that little polka dot look. I am dipping the tool in the paint each time to keep the dots as close to the same size as possible. And one at the corner. Okay, and I'm going to add, just fill in a little space here, so I'll go in with some sour apple and just kind of fill in where I think there's a little bit of blank space there. I'm just looking to see what else I want to do to this. I'm going to take the Laguna and I'm going to build out this little design element a little bit by just walking some dots, using a large nail dotter and just walking dots. Fill in a little bit of that space, put a little spike there. Okay, that is the main part of the design, and again I'm just looking to see where else I think I need to fill in. Just add a little bit more Laguna in there to fill in some of that space. Check it over and see if we think it's finished. It looks good. I'm going to set that aside to dry. Okay, it is dry, and now I can do some top dotting. And before I do that, I want to get these lines off. See how miserable this is? I'm so mad about it, to tell you the truth. But I didn't test it out before I tried this one because it, was washable. So I just kind of trusted that. Next time I'll know better, and I'll try that. But I tried all kinds of things. I tried erasing it. I tried using a damp Q-tip, and I just had to keep working at it. I used several different kinds of erasers. I used the end of my ceramic pencil. I used what actually ended up working is just this eraser cap, a pencil eraser cap, and I just ended up using that. But I had to work pretty hard to get that off, so it was really irritating. Anyway, I don't need to torture you with watching this anymore. Suffice it to say, I had to work really hard to get those lines off. So let's move on. Okay, I've set it aside and it's dry, and I'm ready to start doing the top dots. I've got it as clean as I can, but you can still see the ghost lines. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and top dot. I'm going to use the same colors that I've been using and just get some additional contrast there. Okay, I let the first layer dry somewhat. There's some that are still wet. I'll leave those, but the ones that are dry, I'm going to go back in and start adding a second layer. Add contrast where I think I need it, or highlight. right, I've set that aside to dry, and this is how it's looking so far. I'm going to go ahead and leave the tape on there, but I'm going to use the DecoArt DuraClear matte varnish. Use whatever kind of varnish you like, but I'm using this one. Be sure your piece is dried, and then I'm just going to put a light coat on this. I've got a wide flat brush that I'm using, and I'm just going to get that on. I'm going to put several coats because I'm going to go ahead and throw this into my purse to sort of do a wear test, and I'll see how long it lasts, and I'll fill you in at some later date on how it lasted, but I'm going to put several coats of varnish on this. So put a coat on, let it dry, put another coat on. I didn't varnish the whole thing, I just varnished the top. And okay, here's our finished piece. I'll just take the tape off and I'm ready to go. I love this little notebook, it's so cute. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio. Take care.